Would it be a good idea for the NFL to implement a separate quarterback salary cap? Would that help the Philadelphia Eagles and other teams in the NFL? We'll get into it coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in, Eagles fans, to this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. I'm one of your two hosts, Louis DiBiase, joined as always by Gino Camilleri. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sports stop sportsing like we want them to, but this summer FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everybody every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. On today's show, we're going to discuss something that's been kind of circling around the NFL media and Twitter, and I think some teams and maybe the league's even discussing this. It has to do with a separate quarterback salary cap. Plus, we're going to introduce a new segment we're going to do every Tuesday, What's More Likely? The Eagles announced their new jerseys, all that and more coming your way. And, I did want to discuss this with you because it's not an Eagles-specific topic, but it would absolutely impact them. And we've seen the ramifications, the impact of a quarterback extension, what that does, how that changes your team, your overall roster philosophy, the way you build your football team around that quarterback, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. Some teams can't do it. Some teams can. There has been an idea, I don't know if the league is discussing it themselves, but around NFL media circles, there's this discussion about a separate salary cap for quarterbacks. And although there are some pros, I don't personally love it. I think the parity of the league is perfect right now. And if you introduce this, it's going to me, create some sort of NBA, MLB-like, path where super teams can form, and it just might become more lopsided. I love these out there ideas. I think it would be great for the Eagles selfishly, but for the NFL, I don't know if I like the harmony this league is in right now with the balance of roster building.
First things first, I think whoever threw out that idea is exactly the type of person you were describing. Somebody that just doesn't understand basic roster building, hates the parity in the NFL, and just finds it hard to construct a team with a quarterback that takes
it's very
up the
college football
majority
vibes
of your team. And the best GMs have to find a way to do it. But at the same time, the only comparison I can find comes from a league that right now, with the way the U.S. men's national team performed in the last tournament, the MLS, they have what is known as a designated player allocation. And this is for guys that are like international players. For example, Xherdan Shaqiri, who's playing for Switzerland at the Euros right now. He makes the most money in the MLS. It's like $8 million per season, which expands beyond any player in the league, but they have this single slot for guys like that. So that's the only analogy that I can kind of tie together between those two. And is the MLS the best league in the world? Absolutely not. They struggle to grow because of that rule. There's a lot of people that push back against it. I think it makes for good college football talk, like you say. I think with the name, image, and likeness conversation now, that there has to be some sort of cap, especially on quarterbacks. If you hear some of the numbers that these kids are making, it's egregious. But in the NFL, we're the USA. This is a consumer-based society. Money runs the world. If you have the money to pay these guys, the good teams are going to do it. And if you don't want to pay them, well, there's somebody else that's going to do it. That's capitalism, baby, and that's the NFL. If you think the NFL is going to change in their ways, especially at the QB position, which is the most important position in sport, Lou, you got to find a way to build around this individual, because it's not a LeBron James type of league where you can get one or two guys to change a organization foundationally. I mean, yeah, you can with the quarterback. I guess I kind of went against my point there. But when it comes to the NFL, you have to find a way to get 53 and probably more guys under that number. Yeah. And that's what's great about the parity. And that's what's great about the Howie Rosemans, the guys who have been through the ringer and have found out those little loopholes, putting all of this dead money at the end with these void years and figuring out ways to create a competitive roster year in and year out.
Yeah, it's a fun challenge. Like, I like seeing a team, how do they continue to extend that window with your quarterback once you're giving him 35% of the cap? Like, to me, that's fun. Exactly. Is it more challenging? And selfishly, as an Eagles fan, would I love this idea for a team like the Eagles that have a massive contract spent on a Jalen Hurts? Absolutely. It gives you a huge advantage to build around your star quarterback. It wouldn't be nearly as hard to build around that player. And I guess in a way, if you like dynasties, if you like super teams, if you're an NBA type of guy, this gives you that kind of setup where it's almost like a luxury tax kind of format.
Yeah, that's what they would have to avoid. And I think there is a way to avoid it now that I'm thinking about it. So there would have to be like a set ceiling on this number, right? And if you were to exceed the number, let's say, that would then go into a percentage of your actual salary cap. So let's say you can only pay a QB $60 million max. But then somebody pays him $65 million. Well, $5 million is going to come off of your general allocation cap,
I like that. If you're going to do it, you'd have to have something like that.
There would have to be some sort of metric to make it fair, because then, like you said, these huge market teams,
it'd be the MLB. It's like the Yankees are always going to pay, like the Oakland A's are never going to have a chance unless they create this Moneyball formula. Like, Gino, teams like Cincinnati and Buffalo that have not even the ones that don't have star quarterbacks, because that's the thing is right now with the way it's set up, I love the parity, and you can have parity because even if a team doesn't have a star quarterback, you can build around a rookie quarterback. You can build around a stopgap and create, more talent around that player with the roster by spending more money on those positions. Like, there's other ways to win football games, but if you have this new plan in place, it's almost going to be impossible for a team that doesn't have a quarterback to compete seriously year in and year out. And like you're mentioning, if you're a team that, let's say you don't have a billionaire owner that can just backload contracts all the time and spend all this kind of money, then you really don't have a shot. So I really just think it would hurt the parity of this league overall. It's a fun idea, and I like where your head's at is kind of finding a middle ground with this idea, but overall, I would lean more towards keep it the way it is. I think if it's not broken, don't fix it.
I think if they went the way of the luxury tax and that MLS designated player idea where it kind of isolates the quarterbacks in a vacuum, I think that's the wrong way to go about it. And you're going away from what this sport is at its identity. And you said a great point. There are other ways to win a football game.
Yeah.
Right?
Unless if this was in place, like if you don't have a star quarterback, you have no advantage because the Chiefs with Pat Mahomes, now they can spend just as much as you on other positions.
And then you get into the conversation of now does there have to be a floor, and what is the benefit of these teams if they don't get to, let's say, spend this exorbitant amount of money on the quarterback? There are so many things that I think the salary cap is already difficult enough to understand.
Yeah, I've been trying to understand it my entire life.
It's basically like continuing education every single year for a profession. You have to continue to stay up on it. It is always changing. But it's basic enough to where you can understand it. If you got into this realm, I think you're going to bring in some conversations where you're bringing in like big four accounting firms and these top analytical firms to make decisions on these contracts. And the football guys already hate all these analytical and numbers type of decisions. I think the salary cap is great the way it is. Can it be adjusted? Yeah, there are quirks that you can always add and take away, and I'm sure the void years will be looked at in some realm in the near future. And with the expanded weeks, are they going to have expanded rosters? Of course, but to have one player, that's an NBA model, and that's not what the NFL is doing. And they're outside of one or two guys. Is there even that player that deserves this like mega contract, like you're saying? And that's what this formula great right now is that teams they're at the blackjack table. They're either staying or hitting on soft 16. They have to kind of crap or get off the pot. And that's what makes the Daniel Jones contract so great. We're in this salary world of the quarterback by itself. Does it push other teams? Well, okay, Daniel Jones got this much. Now I'm going to look across the aisle. That's how much I get. If there's this self-imposed floor that they would want.
Yeah, middle markets almost starting to form.
All these middle markets, like you're saying, can just sit at that floor, and it doesn't really push the envelope. It would really help the bigger cities where they get into the bidding markets. And I kind of deter this middle class of quarterbacks that I think we just got into like a macroeconomics conversation.
No, it's interesting though. And it's not like, Gino, the NFL is like the NHL where it's an extremely hard cap. It's not the NBA where you can just continue to pay a luxury tax. Although even the NBA policies have gotten a lot stricter the last few years. It's why super teams really have not been forming like they used to be. But the NFL, it's not like you can't build around a quarterback once you give them the extension. Sure, it's becoming harder and harder. They're taking up more and more of the salary cap. But if you're smart, if you do draft well, if you do manage your cap well, again, it's nice to have a rich owner. That certainly helps. But look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, they paid Jalen Hurts, and yet look at the roster around him. It's not impossible where a quarterback that's getting paid that second deal suddenly has to play around just a bunch of day 3 draft picks. Like, I don't think it's that extreme right now where we need to take this drastic of a measure.
And with how much it is going up year to year, and we keep bringing up this conversation, and it's going to happen at some point in the near future.
Yeah,
the bubble is going to burst, and these media contracts are going to get out of control.
Yeah, it's not like quarterbacks are getting paid more, but the cap's not going up, and owners aren't getting richer. It's not like it's this inflation versus income increase.
This is the cap went up that much this year. That was 2024. People didn't think it was going to go up that much. And that's fair market. That's capitalism.
Outside of COVID, it goes up every single year substantially.
That's how it's going to work. And I think out of all of the leagues, they seriously do it the best. I think the NBA,
I think it's a perfect middle ground between NBA and MLB, NHL. Yes. Yeah, I totally agree.
MLB is an absolute joke.
Yeah.
I think
and the NHL is the opposite. They don't have enough money, and it's such a hard cap. It's hard
their best players getting paid like $13 million.
Less than Nelson Aguilar at this
absolute
point.
Shame. And don't follow route of the MLS, and the NBA is just absolutely ridiculous at this point in time. And these guys that aren't worth their money are getting these contracts.
Desmond Bane's getting paid more than like 90% of the quarterbacks in the NFL.
Who's our guy this year, Lou? I know you're an NBA guy. Who is our free agent NBA contract that we can say like, that's the Matthew Dellavedova contract?
Well, now. I mean, you just look at like a Nicholas Batum contract. You look at, what like Markkanen is going to get. I mean, those guys are getting paid like a top 10, top 15 quarterback. It's unbelievable.
But that's what makes the NFL great, is that you have this one position, and then at the same time, you still can pay guys like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith like 65% of what your QB is making, and that's $55 million combined between the two, and still have stars. And I think it's perfect. I think the formula is great. Like I said, there's always quirks and qualms with it, but that's what separates the good ones that want to dive in and find all the ins and outs and learn the way to kind of avoid this tax that they have. Don't change it, NFL. Leave it the way it is, please.
And both Gino and I love bold ideas and changing things for the better, being creative. Like, I think this idea is interesting and it could lead to other ideas. So very pro idea podcast here. Yeah. We're not the old men yelling to get off our, we're not the old man yelling at a cloud.
Cap, a defense cap, like that's an idea we can get
Again,
into.
yes, this could spark some sort of, brainstorming session where you could come up with a cool idea around the salary cap. But this specifically, love the idea, love the thought, the creativity, but overall, just like Gino said, I would keep it the way the NFL has it set up. I think it's the perfect balance in all of major sports. Coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, we've got our first segment of What's More Likely, and it has to do with two players on the defensive side of the football heading into year 1 and year 2. So don't go anywhere. We'll get into that coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. Something I've learned through therapy over the last 3 to 4 years. Comparison truly is the thief of joy, and it's easy to envy other people's lives. It might look like they have it all together, especially on social media. You go to their Instagrams, you go to their Snapchats, Twitter, Facebook, but in reality, they probably don't have it all figured out just like you don't. Therapy can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have, so you can start living your best life for you. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and it's suited to your schedule, whether you got the 9 to 5, the overnight shift. BetterHelp's gotcha. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Stop comparing and focusing on you. Stop comparing yourself, I should say, to others and focus on you with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. Once again, that's BetterHelp.com/lockedon for 10% off your first month of online therapy. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Guys, you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Got to turn down the volume with all the shouting. We'll make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we're going to be starting some weekly segments throughout the 2024 season. And on Tuesdays, we're going to do something called What's More Likely. And I think this is going to be interesting. It could lead to a lot of different talking points. And Gino, today I was thinking about the Eagles stats. I was looking at their box score over the last few years, specifically on defense. After our positional previews, we were finishing off those shows with a lot of over-unders and thinking about this young defense and what they have in place on all three levels. And today's What's More Likely has to do with a second-year player on the defensive line and a rookie defensive back. In your opinion, what do you think is more likely? In both, I would not bet on either being the outcome in the box score, but what's more likely? Nolan Smith ends up leading the Philadelphia Eagles in sacks this season, or Cooper DeJean leads the Eagles in turnovers in the secondary.
Ooh.
It's like two players that you're not relying on them like a Jalen Carter and a Quinyon Mitchell, but it is two first-round talents, Cooper DeJean taken in the second round, but he was a day one talent over the last 2 years, that second pick for the draft. You know, you don't desperately need them, but if they become a star, it helps your defense so much. So that's why I try to pair them together.
I think the more likely of the two would be that DeJean leads the team in turnovers.
I'm with you.
But I want to put a little spin on that and say what's more likely, Nolan Smith having a higher amount of sacks than Cooper DeJean having a higher amount of turnovers. Because if he were to lead the team in sacks being Nolan Smith, that's going to be like 13 to 14
that's
in
a fair
my
point.
opinion.
The ceiling, it's a harder ceiling to hit.
Yeah, that's a high ceiling. But when it comes to Cooper DeJean, realistically, he's going to have an ability to not only get some interceptions on the score sheet, he's a very good tackler, man.
He's a very good tackler. That was part of why I said turnovers and not interceptions. Because, Gino, if he's playing in the slot, he's going to be down in the box a lot against the run. And like you said, he can force the ball out.
The one thing that hinders that number is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, in my opinion, because he is such a ball hawk. And I think he's going to be somebody who is around the ball that he is more than likely going to lead the team. But if we're sticking to just this hypothetical, I got to go with Reed Blankenship because of, like you said, if he is a pseudo linebacker at times.
Cooper DeJean, do you mean?
Cooper DeJean, my bad. Excuse me.
Got your white boys mixed up.
Oh my God. I know. The Milk Check brothers. What are we going to call them?
The nicknames have been hilarious.
Yeah, we gotta coin something here.
Somebody keeps posting a picture of like a wine store and the sign just says nice whites every time.
They're pretty good. Hopefully they are pretty good because it could get really bad if they aren't at that position.
Yes.
But Cooper DeJean, his ability to make an impact around the football as a tackler, as somebody who can see the ball from the back end, as that type of poach player, versus Nolan Smith, who's going to be a rotational type of rusher, more than likely will get less playing time than Cooper DeJean, in my opinion.
I think so too, yeah.
Because you're going to find more snaps with those defensive backs out than a third edge, in my opinion. You're going to play less guys on the line, more guys on the back end. You want both of them to work out. I'm going Cooper DeJean. I'm laying my chips on the table with that.
I am too, and it's hard because both guys aren't guaranteed a major role. I think, like you said, there's a better path for Cooper DeJean to be like that full-time slot corner. If they use Avonte Maddox more in this hybrid role and more as like a primary backup, Nolan Smith, like I think is going to be that third guy off the edge. Mm-hmm. Cooper DeJean could end up not playing much at all if they put Maddox in the slot and
that's they're using bad CGJ. Asset allocation. If so.
I totally agree, and that's why I don't think it'll happen. But there is that kind of scenario, so it's tough, and that's why I drew it up because like there's a lot more playmakers in the secondary, as you mentioned. CGJ, you look at Quinyon Mitchell, Darius Slay, Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown, even when he comes back. Like there's a lot of guys with some ball skills. But overall, I'm with you. I think it's DeJean because with Nolan, I can't really figure him out. I don't know how I feel about Nolan. Last year was just such a wash where you just didn't see him on the field enough, but even when you did, it wasn't that impressive. But you love the skill and the talent. There's a reason me and you both Like last year, I was so disappointed, and I feel like I didn't pay attention to Nolan Smith at all. But I do remember both of us saying if he was the first pick, like if the Eagles stayed where they were in the top 15 in that 2023 draft and he was the first pick, they didn't get Carter, we would have both been okay with it. Like he was that talented. So I think Smith could. There is a scenario where he's better this year than Bryce Huff and Josh Sweat. But I think for all the reasons we've laid out, I think it's close, but I'd also go with DeJean.
The thing with Nolan Smith is we're banking on a lot of question marks right now, and you have to see it. Like, can he play undersized?
Yeah.
Even though he bulked up a little bit, you know that he has the length concerns at the point of attack. Can he be a 3-down type of player? Cooper DeJean, you're going to get something out of him regardless.
Yeah, I think he has such a high floor. I don't think there's any way he's a bust.
Right, we're talking about taking Nolan Smith potentially at that first pick. We would have taken Cooper DeJean at that first pick as well, but you landed both Quignon.
Now, I think it's more likely that like Nolan Smith ends up becoming an elite player that's top 10 in sacks every year than Cooper DeJean's consistently one of the top players in like interceptions where he's a 6 to 7 pick guy. I think Nolan Smith has a higher ceiling as a player than Cooper DeJean.
Like you can kind of floor that out, level it out. You look at BG, Fletcher Cox, right? But like interceptions, you can have these massive years and then it can come back.
And then sometimes it comes back. So it's interesting. I think both players are a fascinating case study this year. Again, you don't like desperately need them, but they are first and second round picks of the last 2 years that if they pan out, again, you kind of hedged your bet or kind of doubled down by taking other players at those spots. So you're okay in a way if they don't pan out. But if they do,
like last year,
if they both hit, like that is it would be so huge for this defense.
If you can get 4 to 5 turnovers out of Cooper DeJean, and heck, I think 6.5 would be
what are you happy with for Nolan Smith this year, sack? And again, I know sacks.
When you said that, I thought you were going to say the turnovers versus sacks number, which I thought would be pretty close. So I would put both of them around 6.5, maybe a little less. It depends on Cooper DeJean how they're going.
What he's doing.
Them. Because if he could just sit and find the ball is like that last guy in the defensive backfield who's just like a center fielder, I think he can make a crazy impact and come up and defend the alley and cause 2 or 3 fumbles. I don't see a world where Nolan Smith can get anywhere near a Bryce Huff level of production or a contract year Josh Sweat level of production or BG going into the sunset and like setting a career year with 10 sacks type.
He is a first round pick though, Gino. So if he ends up looking pretty good, if he breaks out, I could see a scenario where he's playing as much, if not more, than a Sweat or Huff. I wouldn't predict it because those two are very good as well in their own right, but I don't know. I think, and you mentioned like 6 over 6 sacks. If Smith is at like 6.5 this year, would I feel good about that? Again, it depends because sacks aren't the only number that matters. Like Bryce Huff, has not been a 16 sack guy, but he's top 3.
Pressure is he going to have?
Yeah, like his pass rush win rate
in the backfield when it comes to the run.
There's
game.
so many other
I'm
metrics.
measuring him against the run a lot more than I am against the pass, if we're being honest, because the traits are there for the pass rush. Like we know it's just a matter of time.
That comes. He was very good against the run at Georgia, Gino. He was consistently a top graded run defender. According to a PFF at least, at Georgia. So it's not I
think FanDuel is going to help him out. I think he's going to allow him to be more free in the flat, kind of flow.
Just because you're undersized doesn't mean you can't be good on the edge against the run. Hassan Reddick.
No, absolutely.
I mean, when he was trying to, Hassan Reddick was very good against the run.
BG, man. Like that. How he's
one of the best run defenders on the edge the Eagles have ever had.
Without a doubt. And I think that's a great person to learn from as well. BG's last year and Nolan Smith.
And you learned from Hassan Reddick last year.
To kind of soak it all in. So should be a good conversation, and for everybody listening, you hope that these guys are getting closer to those numbers because that's the bump that you need. And Cooper DeJean, if you got a first round talent in the second round, and Nolan Smith, you basically got him in the second round. Man, that's a home run discussion that we're having because those weren't your first picks, Lou. Those are your second picks.
Yeah, I think, again, based on the way I worded the question, it's more likely that Cooper DeJean leads the team in turnovers than Smith does sacks, but I think it's more likely Smith has more sacks than DeJean has turnovers, right? I think is that where your head is at too, or?
Yes.
Yeah. Because if Smith gets like 6.5 sacks, it's a good line. If it's like 6.5, that'll be close, but it's going to be fun to follow those two players for sure. All right, Gino, let's talk some jerseys to wrap up the show. The Eagles announced their uniform combinations for 2024. Got some thoughts on that as we wrap up this Tuesday edition of Locked On Eagles.
It's Tuesday, and this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs are now over, we have fewer games to watch. And sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I am in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. All you have to do is head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. Get in that Copa America action. The Euro is going on. Before you know it, NFL training camps will be here. So head over to FanDuel.com once again and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
All right, so you guys know if you've been listening to Locked On Eagles for years, big jersey podcast. We love following the Eagles uniforms. I actually used to do like a Eagles jersey stat every Friday when they would. I'm going to bring that back this year, by the way. They would announce their jersey combinations for Fridays.
Let's put that out there.
Yeah, I was going to say someone took over a little bit on that, and but I'm going to get back into it this year. The Eagles did announce their uniforms, Gino, and I'm going to pull up the graphic on Twitter. They have 6 different combinations they're going to rock this year, and I think it's at least in my lifetime as an Eagles fan, it's the best wardrobe they've ever had, just based on the variety of combinations.
The other day, I saw a meme about the NHL, and it was somebody from the 80s who took a picture of their NHL bed sheets and said, each day, the NHL logos are getting closer and closer to these bed sheets. And I think that's the same with the NFL. The closer we get to the 80s and
everything's
the 90s,
getting brighter.
It's getting brighter. It's getting back to this creativity.
Mm-hmm.
I love the direction that it's going. I think a lot of teams have hit a home run on their new jerseys this year. I think the Broncos are probably the worst, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're the only ones that whiffed, I feel like.
That was pretty brutal, but a lot of teams, man, especially with these throwbacks, are knocking them out of the park. And the Kelly Greens
I'm so glad they're here
perfect.
to stay.
They're absolutely perfect.
They're the best jerseys in football. And the nostalgic person in me, or the person that is growing up with the midnight green, I don't want to lose those jerseys, but just based on pure looks, there's nothing better than the Kelly green. So those are coming back. The Eagles did announce they're going to wear them for the Jaguars game and the home game against Dallas, which I think are two perfect games. Mm-hmm. I'm actually surprised they didn't wear Kelly green last year against Dallas. Like, that's awesome. They are bringing back the black jersey with the green helmet. So, Gino, they did not bring back the black helmet, which I'm surprised because I thought the NFL passed a rule this year that you can wear now up to 3 different helmets.
Yep, a lot of the teams that came out with their jerseys, i.e. the Denver Broncos, like I mentioned, they came out with that additional 3rd helmet. And I am kind of shocked that they didn't bring it back. But
I do like the green better, honestly, with black, to be honest, Gino. Like, I like green better.
Here, Lou. Are they coming out with another helmet that they're kind of...
So are we bringing back the white? That's what I want.
Who knows? Who knows? They didn't put the black out there, so they didn't
even think of that
officially. Like, is it when you put it on going into the season, or do you have to?
I don't know, man. I would love to. I need to talk to somebody in the league that makes the jersey rules. I want to know who is the guy for that, the policies, because nobody really knows when the deadlines are, how things work. Everybody always tells me something different. You might be onto something. If they implement a white helmet, that I've been using that Photoshop of Miles Sanders on Twitter for years with that look from the late 60s, early 70s. I would be so in on that.
Do you go with the white helmet with the green wings? Is that what you want?
Yes. Yeah, that's what
I would. The white helmet with the old school green eagle. I think that would be a perfect change up because you get the wings with the Kelly greens as well. Okay. Let's go with the alternate throwbacks.
Hey, man, I'm cool with
the green eagle. I think that would be super sick. You have a nice little rotation there.
Like, that can be your whiteout instead of your typical, preseason jerseys.
That would be clean. Dude.
Yeah. I will say, I actually I loved the black helmets 2 years ago. I liked the idea of it, but I actually like the green helmet with the black jerseys better. The only issue I have, and again, this is, I love even the white jersey with the black pants. Don't love the white jersey with green pants as much. That's the slow uniform, in my opinion. Yeah. One thing I would like, give me some different pant combinations with the black and green jerseys. Like, give me a green jersey, black pants day, or green and green, right? Or black. They used to wear, growing up, black jerseys with white pants or green. Mm-hmm. Like, give me, with the darker jerseys, give me some different pant combos.
I'm with you on that one as well. And could we ever see the days of a full midnight green jersey ever again?
Yeah, that would be cool. Like, they did that in the early 2000s, and it looked a little cheesy back then, but I think it could work. I mean, like a color rush Thursday night game, like give me that.
The NFL
Give me
always
different
doing
combinations.
stupid gimmicks, and
I know.
okay, with the jerseys, it's you're only allowed 4 this season.
Yes,
right?
you're only allowed 4. You can have your 2 jerseys and then a throwback and an alternate.
Yeah.
So.
We need to get rid of that cap. We talked about salary.
There should be no cap on
There should be no cap on jerseys. We should be making jerseys all of the time.
They should be soccer. They should be your Oregon Ducks.
Yes, we are bringing this all together. I was talking about one thing the MLS does do. They come out with new jerseys every single year, and it makes people want to buy them. And the NFL, why they don't do this all the time? Because you see how much money the Kelly Green launch made. The longer you sit on it, the longer I mean, let's be real. Counterfeit. People go across the world to buy their jerseys.
Oh, yeah. Gino, I bought a Carson Wentz Kelly Green jersey in 2017. The league wasn't close yet to coming out with that.
No, not at all. And where do you think Lou got that? We're
China.
not going to say. Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, if you're the NFL and we're in a world where like shoe launches are huge and card launches are huge, why are we not doing this with jerseys? It's like you could even do a limited edition one where it's just one season that you're wearing that jersey, like the soccer model.
I love that.
They need to just get rid of that. College football is doing it right. Basically, every other league is doing it right, Lou. I think like the City Connect. Why aren't they doing like a City Connect, hopping on with the MLB and NBA now? And
like a City jersey would be cool. That's a great idea. Yeah,
like you could do I mean, it would probably look ridiculous, but you could probably figure out a way to do like a 76ers or a Phillies. Like I think a maroon. Like, that would be pretty dope.
You don't have to wear it for the regular season, but, like, your idea you just mentioned, how about you make the preseason somewhat bearable in other ways by doing, like, what you're talking about, doing a City jersey, doing a Sixers night.
Oh, yeah.
Like, make the preseason if you're going to keep
like the
it.
military one where they'll wear those during warm-ups.
Military night, do a camo, wear them in the game.
Yeah, why don't they do that during like a military appreciation? Why is it we need to go to the NFL with this business?
I agree, Gino.
We got to make them some.
The NFL, and again, they're getting there. Like we have Kelly Green, we have a 3-helmet rule. I mean, the Lou and Gino from 2019 thought that would never happen. This is what the NFL does. They slowly do something, but they just can't go all in. They make it so much more difficult. But that's the league that
very cold in the pool that they're getting in. That's
sure. Absolutely. Well, overall though, the jerseys are going to look really good on the Birds in 2024, and it's perfect because this roster is loaded with talent. Look good, play good for sure. So Kelly Green, Midnight Green, they've got white on black, white on green, white on white. And then the all-black jerseys with the green helmets coming back this year. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in and making us your first listen each and every day. 4 more shows for you this week. Until then, for Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. Thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.